So how did we get here? On last week's show, we discussed social engineering. Okay. Now, back in 1710, they came up with Meritorious Manumission. And it's how black people developed a culture of snitching and pro-establishment Negro leadership. Before we get into that, let's let the greatness that is Dr. Claude Anderson explain it to you.
It was set up in the Virginia colony and then also later into South Carolina. It's called Meritorious Manumission. Meritorious means to earn, manumission means to release. So a black could earn his release from slavery if he did one of four things, or a combination, elaboration, or sophistication of those four things. One, if he could prove to whites that he could see things through the eyes of a white person, and he'd prove it by one, saving a white person's life; two, saving a white person's property; three, inventing something or improving the profits that he get from picking cotton and corn or tobacco; or four, if he would squeal on and tell on any other black person who was trying to escape from slavery. That was called meritorious manumission. We still got blacks in America that's working hard and diligently to get meritorious manumission.
And so I tracked from 1710 all the way up to 1860s. And out of over 200 some possible slave revolts, a black person squealed in every one of them.
Like he just explained, Meritorious Manumission Act, a law passed in Virginia back in the 1700s as a propellant that spurred black people to snitch on one another to get into the good graces of white folk. Meritorious Manumission was the legal act of freeing an enslaved African for good deeds. Dr. Claude Anderson just told you that every uprising, a nigger snitched. See, they had to put that in us. That's what turned us against each other. That's one of the things. We're going to delve deeper. But that's what got us where we are. Social engineering. No one wants to look at that. All we want to talk about is how we are today. How did you get cancer? Were you smoking? Eating processed foods? Did you work in an environment that contributed to your cancer? How did you get it? How did we get here? Meritorious manumission was developed for us to turn against each other. So in 2022, we're still that way because look at the Congressional Black Caucus. They don't give a shit about us. It's about what they can do for white folk. That's how we got here. This behavior has trickled down to modern day and persists today. Trying to get white folk approval. We got black leaders running around here who prioritize their personal ambitions and individualism over the liberation of the masses of our people. From colonial capitalism and its byproduct, poverty. You know, Dr. King called these people out. Call them manufactured leaders back in the day is what he said. See, it was created by the white power structure in order to maintain control over the black vote. It's sad. This is how we got here. Social engineering. Again, last week I went over some things with different people because everyone always wants to talk about what's happening now. No one ever wants to discuss what got us here. Meritorious manumission. The mindset is so ingrained in black culture that some experts say the slave behavior will never disappear. What did J. Edgar Hoover say? I'll have these niggas voting Democrat for the next 200 years. Check it out.
When Lyndon Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act of 1964, he said, if niggers want to vote, I'll have them vote Democrat for 200 years. manipulating us ever since.
Sad state of affairs. Okay. Now, the second thing that you have to look at and that you have to consider is it may have existed, it may not have existed, but the Willie Lynch letter